Hello everyone, my name is Bùi Việt Anh, and today I'll be presenting a topic of my choice for the video journal 2. How does war influence demographics in one country? This is the case study of Russia after 2022, when the Russian-Ukrainian war has started. Let's go through the content first. In the beginning, I will overview the demographic trends that are happening in Russia right now. I will compare the case of Israel with the Russian one. Next, I'll answer the question, how many people have actually left Russia? There is a tendency that the people are willing to leave the country in order to seek for the better life and better labor. Third one, Russia's birth and mortality rates, especially during the war period. It is important to search for the statistics of these rates because there is a tendency of falsification and unpleasant data. So, lastly, I will be making a statement that catastrophe is imminent in Russia because the demographic and labor crisis will definitely be intensified. Let's move on. This is Israel. Precisely, this is what a good demographic pyramid looks like. It is smooth with no bits. Most people are newly born. And the number of people rolls down smoothly, which ensures the sustainability of the economy as a whole. In Russia, it looks like this. I would not even say that this looks like a pyramid. It's more like a roller coaster, really. But anyway, it has had three bits. The first one being influenced by the First World War. Next one is echo of the Second World War, and the third one, this is the consequence of the era of 90s, the post-Soviet era. And right now, another event is taking place which will undoubtedly have an impact on demographics in the future. Let's move on and let's talk about how many people have really left Russia. Russians left abroad 27 million times in 2023, and with the population of Russia being 144 million, 27 million is literally 1/5 of the whole population. That's why we need clarification that 27 million is just total departures, not exactly the number of people. So it's obviously not 1/5 who disappeared from the Russian land. Anyway, most people continue to take holidays, go on business trips, and even return from the immigration. And what's more, they do this several times a year. There are no precise statistics on how many citizens have gone abroad and not returned. Nevertheless, we can find out evidence of immigration from international sources. So, Turkey will take the number of received residence permits as of those who relocated there. Russians were the main recipients of the residence permits, with the number of being 153,000 people. 37,000 Russians recalled their Jewish roots. It is a so-called process of repatriation. Georgia. Here's more accurate info. The Ministry of Internal Affairs directly went out with the response of 120,000 Russians came to Georgia, and they did not leave the country. Armenia. So here the number is just 42,000. In Kyrgyzstan, it is 30,000. And in Kazakhstan, it found out the number of 73,000 of Russians. So the next one is an interesting case, Serbia. Serbia is actually the only European ally of Russia, but it's not in the not present in the European Union. So according to its government, 50,000 Russians entered Serbia since the start of the war. Meanwhile, European Union has counted 38,000 Russians. Lastly, the Americans provide the data for both legally and illegally entering USA. Up to 70,000 legally arrived, and around 57 made it illegally. So now to sum up, we get an estimate number of almost 700,000 of people. So I'm asking myself, is it a noticeable blow to future demographics and the economy of Russia? Absolutely, especially given the natural decline and the demographic pit. Events that are happening now will extend their impact not tomorrow, but into the far future, like 2040. An additional outflow of more than 500,000 at a single time when Russia had a demographic crisis for more than 20 years is a terrible statement. So, for comparison, the difference of birth and death in 2019 in Russia is minus 317,000 people. And here add on the 700,000 people escaping from the country during the wartime. So, to estimate the number more precisely, let's look at Russia's birth and mortality rates. So I took the data for I took the data for the birth rates for a period of 20 years. So we can see that until 2014, Russia was doing quite fine. But after that, we see that a rapid downfall occurred. Everything that was built for 14 years, it lost in just 6 years. So Russia today has literally fallen back into a very initial number of 2000. Moreover, the birth rate is one of the main indicators by which you can tell quite a lot. So, of course, it is the extent to which people have a desire to give birth at all. Also, it's the consequence of immigration also demonstrates the mood of those families. After all, there is a clear problem with the population data. First, they are falsified. Second, there are no statistics on permanent residents abroad. So about falsification. If you imagine that you are an immigrant who is at Vietnam, like me, in order to refuse to be counted in the statistics of Russian citizens, I have to go back to Russia and go through all the legal procedures to be discounted. So how many people even do this? Well, I didn't do this either. I still contribute to Russian statistics as a citizen of Russia. Now look again at the birth chart. The number of births reflects a combination of all the factors that add up to a favorable environment for reproduction. However, since 2014, something went wrong. To complete the picture, let's move on to the chart representing those who have passed away. As you can see, before 2019, Russia had fewer and fewer people die. But then came the COVID. Russia has hit a historic anti-record for mortality, 2,400,000 people. It seems that COVID is responsible for those losses, but in 2022 we can see that the levels are even below, almost below 2020. So nevertheless, yes, in 2022 we got like 2 million, under 2 million deaths, which is, well, better than COVID times, but still not really good. Anyway, I can't really say like what really happened, but I mean, in all appearances in 2022, it's not the COVID that influenced the statistics. If we overlay the graphs, the two graphs that we just discussed, we overlay on each other, then we get the new indicator of natural population change. There has been like almost no natural gain in the post-Soviet years of the Russian history since 1991. But there were a few years of natural gain right here from 2011 to 2016 or 17. But the rest of the time, Russians reproduced less and less. But yet, since 2017, there has been a steep drop. Russia somehow went from a decline of total 130,000 to 320,000 rapidly. Then the COVID times, which in 2021 brought a million loss. So in 2022, it's just 600,000. That's certainly less than at the beginning of COVID, but still a lot more than the pre-COVID. By the way, now we can somehow relate the migration numbers from the first part. What I've calculated alone can be compared to the natural decline in 2022. Notice that it's mostly the older generation who are dying, and it is the most mature people who are leaving the country. So the question is the catastrophe imminent? The previously existing demographic crisis has only worsened since the start of war in 2022, but it is important to understand that demographics of an entire country is a huge and long-lasting entity. I'm not saying that not a single child will be born in Russia tomorrow and maybe millions will die. It's about a trend that could lead to a disaster in a period of 20 years. Let's come back to this graph. The problem is that in 20 years, in 20 years, this part will pass away. And today's 40-year-olds will retire and therefore cease to be the part of the labor force. So here's the number of unemployed that is retirees in the next 20 years. Here's one. And this is how many of them are now. The able-bodied now is this number of people, and this is how many will be there in the future. So that means this number of people is working for these people, like in the way of paying the taxes and pensions. But this number, not too many, becomes this. It is enormously a lot. So yes, the difference is enormous. And I can say like the catastrophe could have been avoided if we had started having more children right now. But Russia's birth trend has been declining since 2014. I'm pretty sure that the war from demographic perspective will only make this trend worse, because on one hand, military action will definitely increase the death rate, and the official data says that just under 100,000 soldiers were lost, although the data varies greatly. But some say that the number is about to reach 600,000. So on the other hand, the birth rate should go down, because it is now more expensive to live due to the sanctions imposed to Russia. But understand that if the trend continues, every year there will be fewer births, more deaths, and the overall population will steadily decline. The decline will lead to a crisis of workforce, increased pressure on the pension system, and ultimately a weakening of the national's economic and social stability. As for conclusion, how does war actually influence demographics and population in one country? Let me answer. Enormously. Putin's regime started a war with literally dying country in their hands, exacerbating already critical issues like declining birth rates, increased mortality, and massive immigration. The war accelerates the demographic decline, that's obvious. It drains the nation and the workforce, while placing an even heavier burden on an aging population. The long-term effects will not only kill Russia's economic future, but will definitely lead to a further population crisis. That's all for now. Thank you very much.